Commander Kyle Harrison stood by the large window of the ship called Starbound. He watched the planet below turning slowly. It was a beautiful world with blue oceans and green lands. This planet had a name in the old records, Colony 7, but nobody from Earth had talked to the people there for almost 300 years. The ship was not from Earth. It belonged to something called the Galactic Union. This was a group of many different alien races who worked together. Kyle was human, but he worked with aliens now. Earth had joined the Union 50 years ago. Since then, humans had been looking for lost colonies, places where humans went long ago but lost contact with Earth. The captain of the Starbound was an alien named Zelathor. She was very tall and looked like a giant insect. She had big eyes that could see many colors. Her people were called the Vex. Even though she looked strange, Kyle trusted her. She was smart and good at her job. Zelathor walked into the room where Kyle was standing. Her voice came through a small machine that changed her sounds into words Kyle could understand. "Commander Harrison, we have a problem. Look at these readings." Kyle looked at the screen she pointed to. His eyes went wide. The planet had weapons in space around it. Lots of weapons. Big guns that could shoot at ships. There were at least 40 of these weapon stations floating in orbit. "This does not make sense," Kyle said quietly. "This was supposed to be a farming colony, a peaceful place. Why do they have so many weapons?" A young woman named Sophie Green came over to them. She had blonde hair tied back and looked worried. Sophie worked on the ship to help with communications. She had been trying to listen to the radio signals from the planet for 3 days. "Commander, I need to tell you something important. The people down there know we are here. They have turned on all their weapons. They think we might attack them." Kyle felt his stomach get tight. This was not going well. 300 years alone had changed these people. They were afraid. Maybe they had good reasons to be afraid. Zelathor made clicking sounds with her mouth parts. This was how her people showed they were thinking hard. "Those weapons are very powerful. Each one could break through our shields. If they shoot at us, we will be in danger. These humans are much stronger than we expected." Kyle took a deep breath. "Then we must be very careful. Sophie, open a channel. Use all the old human radio frequencies. Let them know we come in peace." Sophie worked at her control panel. She sent out their message on every frequency. Then they waited. The waiting felt very long. Everyone in the room was quiet and nervous. Finally, a voice came through the speakers. It was a man's voice. He sounded hard and tough. "Unknown ships, this is Commander Jacob Stone. I am in charge of defense for the free colonies of New Terra. You have entered our space. Tell us why you are here right now. If you do not answer, we will shoot at you." Kyle picked up the microphone. He tried to keep his voice calm and friendly. "Commander Stone, my name is Kyle Harrison. I am from Earth. I work for the Terran Diplomatic Corps. We are part of something called the Galactic Union. Earth has been looking for lost colonies for many years. We finally found you. We do not want to hurt you. We want to help." There was another long silence. Kyle could hear people talking in the background on the other end. They were probably deciding what to do. When Stone spoke again, his voice was different. He still sounded suspicious, but there was something else too. "Maybe hope. You say you are from Earth? That is a very big claim, Commander Harrison. You must understand that we cannot just believe you. We have learned that we must be very careful. Survival means always being ready." Kyle looked at Zelathor. She was watching him with her many eyes. What had happened to these people? Why were they so afraid? "Commander Stone, I understand. If I were you, I would be careful too. Can we meet face to face? I can show you proof that we are from Earth. I can show you that the Galactic Union is real." More silence. More waiting. Kyle could feel sweat on his forehead. This first contact was the most important moment. If it went wrong, everything would be ruined. Finally, Stone answered. "All right, Commander Harrison, you can come down, but only you and one other person. No weapons. We will meet you at Landing Zone 7. Our ships will escort you down. If you try anything, our weapons will destroy you. Do you understand?" Kyle nodded even though Stone could not see him. "I understand completely, Commander Stone. We will follow your rules. Thank you for giving us this chance." The communication ended. Kyle turned to Sophie. "Get ready. You are coming with me." Sophie looked surprised. "Me? Why me?" "Because you are young and you do not look threatening. Also, you are good with people. I need someone who can help me talk to them in the right way." Zelathor made clicking sounds again. Be very careful, Commander. These humans have survived alone for 3 centuries. They have clearly faced dangers we do not know about. Watch and listen. Learn what made them this way. 2 hours later, Kyle and Sophie sat in a small shuttle. They could see the planet getting closer through the window. Colonial fighter ships flew next to them. The fighters were small but looked very dangerous. They were covered in weapons and armor. Sophie pointed at one of the fighters. Look at those ships. They are built for war, not peace. What happened here? Kyle shook his head. I do not know, but we are about to find out. The shuttle landed on a concrete pad. Armed soldiers stood everywhere. They all held rifles and watched the shuttle with hard eyes. Kyle and Sophie walked down the ramp slowly with their hands visible. A man walked toward them. He was in his 50s with gray in his dark hair. His uniform was military and he moved like a soldier. This had to be Jacob Stone, Commander Harrison. I am Jacob Stone, welcome to New Terra. The man did not smile. He looked at them like he was looking for danger. Kyle held out his hand. Thank you for meeting with us, Commander Stone. This is Lieutenant Sophie Green. Stone shook their hands quickly. His grip was strong. Come with me. We have much to discuss. But first you will need to go through security checks. I hope you understand. Of course, Kyle said. They walked through several checkpoints. Soldiers scanned them with machines. Everything was very organized but also very serious. Nobody smiled. Nobody joked. These people lived like they were always at war. Finally, they entered a large underground room. The walls were thick metal. Screens showed pictures of space around the planet. More soldiers worked at computer stations. 2 other people waited in the room. One was a woman with gray hair. She wore civilian clothes but stood very straight. The other was an older man in a general's uniform. His face was hard and weathered. Stone pointed to them. This is Governor Patricia Walsh. She leads our civilian government. And this is General Nathan Cross. He commands our military forces. Governor Walsh stepped forward. She looked at Kyle with sharp eyes. Commander Harrison, you claim to be from Earth. You claim that Earth has joined something called the Galactic Union. These are extraordinary claims. I hope you have extraordinary proof. Kyle reached into his pocket slowly. Everyone in the room tensed. He pulled out a small data chip. This chip contains everything. History of Earth after the collapse. Videos of Earth today. Records of other human colonies we have found. Information about the Galactic Union. Please look at it. Take your time. General Cross took the chip. He put it into a computer. The screens around the room lit up with images and data. Kyle watched their faces as they saw Earth for the first time in 300 years. He saw surprise. He saw wonder. But he also saw sadness. These people had been alone for so long. They had survived without help. Now they learned they were not forgotten. Stone stared at the screens. His jaw was tight. Finally, he turned to Kyle. This is real. Earth really survived. You really found us. For the first time, Stone's voice shook a little. Governor Walsh wiped her eyes quickly. Then she took a deep breath and her voice became strong again. Commander Harrison, we are very glad you found us. But you need to understand something. We are not the same people who left Earth centuries ago. We have changed. We had to change to survive. And now we face our greatest threat yet. We need help, real help. Not just words. Kyle felt the weight of her words. What kind of threat? What happened here? Stone pulled up new images on the screen. Kyle saw alien ships. They looked brutal and wrong. He saw recordings of battles. Cities burning. People fighting and dying. We call them Reavers. They came 20 years after we lost contact with Earth. They do not talk. They do not trade. They only attack. They want to destroy us. We have been fighting them for almost 300 years, Sophie gasped. 300 years of war? General Cross nodded. We lost half our people in the first 10 years. We had to become warriors or die. Every person here knows how to fight. Our whole society is built around survival and defense. Kyle understood now. The weapons, the soldiers, the fear. These people had been fighting for their lives for generations. And now, Kyle asked quietly. Stone's face became grim. Now they are coming back. Our deep space sensors show a huge fleet gathering. Bigger than anything we have seen before. They will attack in less than 2 years. This time they mean to finish us. The room was silent. Kyle felt the weight of 300 years of struggle pressing down on him. These people had survived alone. They had fought and died to stay alive. And now Earth had finally found them just in time to watch them die, unless he could help them. Unless the Galactic... The meeting room was deep underground. Kyle could feel the weight of rock above them. It made sense now. These people built everything to survive attacks from space. Their whole planet was a fortress. Jacob Stone stood at the front of the room. He pressed a button and a large screen lit up. Images appeared showing strange alien creatures. They looked wrong. Their bodies were covered in thick armor. They had too many arms and legs. Their faces had no eyes, just sensing organs that looked like holes. These are the Reavers. We do not know where they come from. We do not know what they want except to kill and take our world. Stone's voice was hard. Sophie was taking notes on her tablet. She looked at the images carefully. How many times have they attacked? General Cross answered. Major attacks maybe 20 times in 300 years. Small raids, hundreds of times. They come, they attack, we fight them off. Then they leave for years before coming back. Kyle studied the battle recordings. The Reavers fought in a brutal way. They did not care about losing ships or soldiers. They just kept attacking until either they won or were driven away. Your weapons, Kyle said. You have technology that should not exist on an isolated colony. Where did you get it? Governor Walsh smiled, but it was not a happy smile. We took it from them. Every time they attacked, we studied their weapons. We took apart their ships. We learned their secrets. Then we made our own versions. Stone changed the image to show human ships. These did not look like the peaceful colony ships Kyle expected. These were war machines. Angular, armored, covered in weapons, we had no choice. We started with mining lasers and colony defense missiles. Now we have railguns, plasma cannons, and shields strong enough to survive orbital bombardment. We built all of this ourselves. Sophie looked amazed. How did you do all this? You were cut off from Earth, no new technology, no help. General Cross stood up. His face showed pride. We did it because we had to. Every person on this planet works toward survival. Scientists work on weapons. Engineers build defenses. Even children learn math by calculating missile trajectories. We became a warrior society because it was that or die. Kyle felt a chill run down his back. An entire culture built around war. For 300 years, what would that do to people? Stone pulled up more data. But now we face our biggest problem. Our sensors show a fleet gathering in the next sector. It is huge, maybe 200 capital ships, thousands of smaller vessels. They have never attacked with this many ships before. When will they arrive? Kyle asked. 18 months. Maybe less. Stone's voice was grim. We have been preparing for this. Building more weapons. Training more soldiers. But it might not be enough. If they come with everything they have, we might lose. The room was quiet. Kyle could hear the hum of computers and the soft breathing of everyone around him. These people were facing extinction. They had fought for centuries, but this might be the end. Governor Walsh walked to the window. It showed a view of the city above them. Tall buildings, parks, schools, normal life happening up there while down here they planned for war. Commander Harrison, we are glad Earth found us, truly. But we need more than just knowledge that Earth survived. We need military help, ships, weapons, soldiers. Can your Galactic Union provide that? Kyle thought carefully before answering. The Galactic Union has been at peace for 300 years. Most species do not have large militaries anymore. But I can ask. I can show them what you face. I can try to get help. Try is not good enough, General Cross said sharply. We need real help, ships and weapons. If the Union cannot provide that, then we fight alone like we always have. Kyle met his eyes. I understand, General. I promise you I will do everything I can. But you need to understand something, too. The Union has never seen these Reavers. They do not know this threat exists. I need to make them understand, Stone nodded. Then we will help you. We will give you all our data on the Reavers, battle recordings, technology analysis, everything we know. Take it to your Union. Make them see that this is not just our problem. If we fall, the Reavers will keep expanding. Eventually, they will reach Union space. Kyle realized Stone was right. This was bigger than one colony. This was a threat to the entire region of space. Sophie spoke up quietly. Can we see your defenses, your weapons? It would help to show the Union what you have built. It would prove that you are serious about fighting. Governor Walsh looked at Stone and Cross. They seemed to have a silent conversation. Finally, Walsh nodded. All right, we will show you. But you must understand that some of what we have built would be illegal under old Earth laws. We did not have the luxury of following those laws. We had to survive. Kyle stood up. I understand. Show us everything. We need to know what we are working with. The tour started in the orbital control room. Screens showed the space around the planet. Kyle could see the defense platforms clearly now. 40 massive stations, each one a fortress in space. A woman in a military uniform explained the system. Her name was Lisa Carter, and she was a major in the Colonial Defense Force. She had a scar on her jaw and her eyes were sharp and alert. Each platform has 6 heavy railguns and multiple missile batteries. They are powered by fusion reactors. They can operate independently for months if needed. We built them over the last century. Every time we had resources, we built another one. Sophie did quick math in her head. That is incredible firepower. You could destroy a fleet with these. Major Carter nodded. We have destroyed fleets with these, but the Reavers keep coming back. They do not care about losses. They just care about winning eventually. Next, they visited the shipyards. These were underground caverns that had been carved out over decades. Inside, workers built warships. The noise was incredible. Metal being cut. Welders working. Machines moving parts. Stone pointed to a ship taking shape. This is a destroyer-class vessel. We have 30 of them operational. Each one carries enough firepower to take on 5 Reaver cruisers. We also have 300 fighter craft and 200 bombers. Kyle walked around the destroyer. It was impressive. Brutal but effective. These people had become expert shipbuilders through necessity. How many people do you have trained for combat? Kyle asked. General Cross answered. Every person over 16 has basic combat training. About 30% of our population serves in the military full-time. Another 40% are reserves who can be called up quickly. We have a population of 8 million. That means we can field an army of over 5 million if we need to. Sophie looked shocked. Your entire society is militarized. Governor Walsh's voice was sad but firm. Yes, it is not the life we wanted. Our grandparents came here to build a peaceful farming colony. But the universe had other plans. We adapted or we died. We chose to adapt. The final stop was the most disturbing. Deep underground was a research facility. Behind thick glass walls, scientists studied captured Reaver technology and biology. A woman named Dr. Helen Park met them there. She was young but had the tired eyes of someone who worked too many hours. She wore a white lab coat covered in coffee stains. Welcome to Research Lab 7. Here we study everything about the Reavers. Their biology, their weapons, their tactics, everything. Dr. Park pointed to a tank where a dead Reaver floated in preservation fluid. Kyle stared at the creature. It was even more disturbing up close. The armor plating looked like it had grown naturally. The sensing organs were arranged in a pattern that made no sense to human eyes. What have you learned? Kyle asked. Dr. Park pulled up data on her tablet. They are silicon-based life forms, very different from carbon-based life like us. Their armor is part of their body. They communicate through radio waves naturally. They have no concept of individual identity. They think and act as a collective. That makes them very dangerous. Sophie said, no fear, no hesitation. Exactly, Dr. Park nodded. They are like a swarm of insects. Each one is disposable. Only the collective matters. That is why they never surrender. That is why they keep attacking no matter the cost. Kyle felt sick. Fighting an enemy like this would be a nightmare. No negotiation, no mercy. Just endless war. Have you found any weaknesses? Anything we can use? Dr. Park smiled slightly. A few things. Their ships are tough but not very maneuverable. Our fighters can outfly them. Their armor is strong against energy weapons but vulnerable to kinetic weapons like railguns, and we have learned to jam their communications. When we do that, they become confused and disorganized. Kyle absorbed all of this information. The colonists had become experts at fighting these Reavers. They knew more about this enemy than anyone in the galaxy. Stone put his hand on Kyle's shoulder. So now you understand, Commander. We are not just asking for help. We have been fighting a threat that could endanger the entire galaxy. We have been doing it alone for 3 centuries. Now we are asking the galaxy to help us finish the job. Kyle looked around at all the data, all the weapons, all the preparations. These people had earned the right to ask for help. They had paid for it with blood and sacrifice. I will take all of this to the Galactic Union. I will make them understand. You have my word. Kyle's voice was firm and certain. Governor Walsh nodded. Then we put our trust in you, Commander Harrison. Our fate is now in your hands. The meeting aboard the Starbound was loud and tense. Kyle had called together representatives from many different alien species. They all belonged to the Galactic Union. Now they sat around a large table arguing about what to do. Captain Zelithor sat beside Kyle. Her compound eyes watched everyone carefully. She had seen the colonial defenses. She understood the threat, but many of the other representatives did not want to believe it. Ambassador Krelthos was the loudest voice against helping. He was a saurian, which meant he looked like a large reptile. His scales were bright green and they shook when he got angry. Right now he was very angry. These humans have built illegal weapons. They have created a society based on war. They have violated every principle the Galactic Union stands for. We should not help them. We should tell them to disarm. Kyle stood up. His face was red. Ambassador, with respect, you are missing the point. These people were abandoned. They had no contact with Earth or the Union. They were attacked by an enemy we never told them about. They did what they had to do to survive. Sophie activated the holographic display in the center of the table. Images of Reavers appeared. Battle recordings played. The other representatives watched in silence. This is what they have been fighting for 300 years. Sophie's voice was calm but firm. These Reavers do not negotiate. They do not stop. They only attack and consume. If the colony falls, these creatures will keep expanding. Eventually, they will reach Union space. A small being named Pip spoke up. Pip was a Mindari, which meant he had large eyes and gray skin. His voice was high and worried. How do we know these Reavers are real? Maybe the humans are lying to get military help. Kyle felt his anger rising but forced it down. I have seen them. Captain Zelithor has seen them. We have the data. We have recordings. We have biological samples. They are very real. Zelithor stood up. Her tall form made everyone look at her. I have analyzed the tactical data. The Reavers use attack patterns designed to overwhelm defenses through sheer numbers. They do not care about casualties. This is unlike anything in Union records. Traditional defensive strategies will not work against them. A young officer named Peter Collins raised his hand nervously. He was human but had never seen war. Commander Harrison, if we ignore this threat, could it really reach Earth and other Union worlds? Kyle nodded slowly. Based on their expansion rate and the colony's position, yes. Within 10 years, maybe sooner. The colony has been an accidental shield between us and them. If that shield falls, nothing stops them from continuing forward. The room went quiet. This changed everything. This was not just about helping one lost colony. This was about protecting thousands of worlds. Ambassador Krelthos sat down slowly. His anger seemed to fade. If what you say is true, Commander, then we face a serious problem. The Galactic Union has not fought a major war in 3 centuries. We have peace fleets, not war fleets. That is exactly why we need the colony's help. Kyle pulled up schematics of colonial weapons on the display. They have been fighting this enemy for generations. They know the Reaver weaknesses. They know the tactics that work. We need to learn from them. Zelithor clicked her mandibles in agreement. The Vex Collective supports immediate cooperation. We should send ships and weapons to the colony. We should also send military advisors to learn their tactics. Then we prepare our own defenses. But the argument continued for hours. Some wanted to try diplomatic contact with the Reavers first. Others wanted to evacuate the colony and establish defenses further back in Union space. A few even suggested abandoning the colony completely and hiding the location from the Reavers. Kyle felt frustrated. Every minute they wasted was a minute the colony did not get help. But he had to be patient. The Union made decisions slowly. That was how democracy worked. Suddenly, a young lieutenant named Jennifer Martinez burst into the room. She worked on communications. Her face was pale and scared. Commander Harrison, we are receiving a distress call. One of the colony's outer mining stations is under attack. Right now, the holographic display changed. Now it showed live footage from the mining station. Kyle's blood ran cold. Reaver ships were everywhere. They were smaller than the capital ships in the records, but still deadly. They fired weapons at the station, tearing it apart piece by piece. Colonial defense fighters launched from nearby bases. Kyle recognized the Viper-class fighters he had seen in the shipyards. They flew straight at the Reavers with no hesitation. The battle was brutal. Reaver ships fired beams of energy. Colonial fighters dodged and returned fire with missiles and railguns. Ships exploded on both sides. People were dying in space while the Union representatives watched. Sophie watched the tactical display. Look at their formations. The colonial pilots fight like a single unit. They cover each other. They use the mining station as cover. They are very good. Major Lisa Carter's voice came through the communications channel. All fighters focus fire on the lead ship. Use pattern Delta 7. Execute now. The colonial fighters moved together. They concentrated their fire on one Reaver ship. It tried to dodge, but it was too slow. Missiles hit its hull. Railgun rounds punched through its armor. The ship exploded in a ball of fire. The remaining Reaver ships turned to flee. The colonial fighters chased them. One by one, the Reaver ships were destroyed or driven away. Within 20 minutes, the battle was over, but the damage was done. The mining station was crippled. Parts of it were burning. Kyle could see bodies floating in space. The colonists had won this fight, but they had paid a price. The room was completely silent now. Everyone had watched the battle. They had seen the Reavers attack without warning. They had seen the colonists fight for their lives. This was no longer theoretical. This was real. Ambassador Krelthos stared at the screen. His scales had lost their bright color. He looked old and tired. I see, they are real. The threat is real. Pip's large eyes were wet with tears. Those poor people. They have been fighting this alone for so long. Kyle stood up. His voice was firm and commanding. We have seen the enemy now. We know what the colony faces. I call for a vote. The Galactic Union should send military aid to New Terra immediately. All in favor? Hands rose around the table. Not everyone voted yes, but most did. Even Ambassador Krelthos raised his hand slowly. The motion passes. Zelathor announced. We will send ships and supplies to New Terra. We will coordinate our forces with theirs. We will prepare for the coming attack. Kyle felt relief wash over him. It was not everything the colony needed, but it was a start. The Union would help. Now they just had to hope it would be enough. Sophie came over to him. Commander, the colony is reporting casualties. 37 dead, 21 wounded. The mining station will take months to repair. Kyle closed his eyes. More deaths, more sacrifice, and this was just a small raid. What would the real battle be like? Peter Collins approached nervously. Commander, how long before Union ships can reach the colony? Kyle checked the star charts. 2 weeks for the first ships. A month for the main fleet. We need to move fast. Zelathor was already issuing orders to her fleet. She commanded several Vex warships, and they would be among the first to arrive. The Vex understood the threat better than most species. They had fought wars before joining the Union. Over the next few days, the space around the Starbound became very busy. Union ships started arriving from different sectors. Cruisers from the Terran fleet, destroyers from the Vex Collective, supply ships from a dozen different species. Everyone was mobilizing. Kyle worked day and night coordinating everything. He talked to admirals and generals. He reviewed supply lists. He helped plan defensive positions. Sophie worked beside him, barely sleeping. One night, Kyle stood alone in the observation deck. He looked at the stars and thought about what was coming. Somewhere out there, a massive Reaver fleet was gathering. Hundreds of ships. Thousands of warriors. All coming to destroy New Terra. Sophie found him there. She brought 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to Kyle and stood beside him. Do you think we can win? She asked quietly. Kyle sipped his coffee. It was terrible, but it was hot. I do not know. The colonists are tough and they know how to fight. Now they will have Union support. Better shields. More ships. Maybe it will be enough, maybe it's not very comforting. Kyle smiled sadly. No, it is not, but it is all we have. We do our best and hope it is enough. They stood in silence for a while. Then Sophie spoke again. The colonists are different from us. They have lived with war their whole lives. Do you think they can ever go back to being peaceful? Kyle thought about Jacob Stone and Patricia Walsh. He thought about Lisa Carter with her scarred jaw. He thought about Helen Park working in her laboratory. They were warriors, yes, but they were also survivors. They were human. I think so. Eventually. But first, we have to make sure they survive to see that peaceful future. That is why we are here, Sophie nodded. Then we better not fail them. Kyle raised his coffee cup. To not failing. Sophie raised hers and they clinked the cups together. Then they went back to work. There was so much to do and so little time to do it. The first Union ships reached New Terra a week later. Kyle and Sophie went down to the planet to see the arrival. Jacob Stone met them at the command center. For the first time, Kyle saw him smile. "Your ships are arriving." Stone pointed at the displays. "We have Vex cruisers, Terran destroyers." The weeks that followed were the busiest of Kyle's life. Every day brought new ships to New Terra. Every day brought new challenges. Colonial forces and Union forces had to learn to work together. It was not easy. The colonists were direct and blunt. They said exactly what they thought. They did not waste time with politics or diplomacy. Union officers found this shocking. They were used to careful words and formal procedures. Sophie spent most of her time fixing problems between the two groups. She was good at understanding both sides. She could explain to colonial officers why Union procedures existed. She could explain to Union officers why the colonists were impatient. One morning, Kyle was called to a meeting at the orbital command station. When he arrived, he found Jacob Stone arguing with a Union admiral. The admiral was a woman named Victoria Kane. She was older, with white hair and 4 decades of experience. But she had never fought a real war. "Your deployment is wrong." Stone was pointing at a tactical display. "You are spreading the fleet too thin. The Reavers will concentrate their forces and punch through somewhere." Admiral Kane looked annoyed. "Commander Stone, I appreciate your experience, but Union doctrine calls for distributed defense. We cover more space this way." Union doctrine was written by people who never fought the Reavers. Stone's voice was hard. "I have fought them for 30 years. Trust me, they will mass their ships and hit one point with everything. Your distributed defense will collapse." Kyle stepped between them. "Admiral, Commander, we need to work together." "Stone, show the Admiral what you mean. Explain the Reaver tactics." Stone took a breath and calmed down. He changed the tactical display to show previous Reaver attacks. "Look, every time they attack, they do the same thing. They gather all their ships in one formation. They pick a weak point. Then they hammer it with everything until it breaks. Speed and overwhelming force. That is their way." Admiral Kane studied the recordings. Her expression changed from annoyed to thoughtful. "I see. So we need a strong center that can absorb the initial attack. Then our wings can close in from the sides." "Exactly." Stone pointed at the display. "Put your toughest ships in the center. Use the orbital defense platforms to support them. Let the Reavers throw themselves against our strongest point. When they are committed, we hit their flanks." Admiral Kane nodded slowly. "That could work. We have the shields to survive the initial attack. Your railguns can hurt them badly. Then we use our superior maneuverability to surround them." For the first time, Stone smiled. "Now you are thinking like someone who fights Reavers." Kyle felt relief. They were learning to work together. It was slow, but it was happening. Similar scenes played out across the entire operation. Colonial engineers showed Union engineers how to build better armor. Union scientists showed colonial scientists how to build better shields. Fighter pilots from both sides practiced together and learned from each other. Dr. Helen Park worked closely with Union weapons experts. She was in her element, excited to share her knowledge and learn new things. Kyle visited her laboratory one day and found her explaining railgun technology to a group of fascinated Union scientists. "The key is the magnetic acceleration. We use multiple stages to build up speed. By the time the projectile leaves the barrel, it is moving at 3% of light speed. Nothing can withstand that kind of kinetic impact." A Vex engineer clicked his mandibles in appreciation. "And you built this with limited resources? Impressive. Our own railguns require twice the power for similar results." Dr. Park smiled. "Necessity makes you creative. When survival depends on it, you find ways to do more with less." The fighter-pilot integration was going well, too. Major Lisa Carter ran joint training exercises. She pushed everyone hard, but she was fair. Union pilots quickly learned to respect her skills. Kyle watched one of the training sessions from the command center. Colonial Vipers and Union interceptors flew together in complex formations. They practiced attack runs and defensive maneuvers. They were starting to move as one unit. Sophie stood beside him. "They are getting better." At first, the Union pilots could not keep up with the colonial pilots. Now they are learning. "The colonial pilots have been doing this their whole lives," Kyle said. "But Union pilots have better technology and training in other areas. Together they are stronger than either group alone." Captain Zelathor entered the command center. She had been working on integrating the orbital defense network with Union command systems. It was a massive technical challenge, but she was making it work. Commander Harrison, I have good news. The defense grid integration is complete. All platforms can now share targeting data with Union ships. This will increase our effectiveness by approximately 40%. That is excellent news, Captain. Kyle felt hopeful. How long until we are fully ready? 2 more weeks for full combat readiness. Zelathor paused. The Reaver fleet is still gathering. Our latest intelligence suggests they will not arrive for another 6 weeks. We have time. Peter Collins came running into the command center. He looked excited and scared at the same time. Commander, we have new intelligence from the deep space monitoring stations. The Reaver fleet is bigger than we thought. Much bigger. Kyle felt his stomach drop. How much bigger? Peter put the data on the main display. 240 capital ships, at least 3,000 support vessels, fighter craft in the tens of thousands. This is the largest Reaver fleet ever recorded. The room went silent. Everyone stared at the numbers. This was worse than their worst estimates. Sophie did quick calculations. We have 80 Union capital ships and 30 colonial destroyers. We are outnumbered more than 2 to 1. Jacob Stone entered the command center at that moment. He saw the display and his face became grim. So they are throwing everything at us. They mean to finish this once and for all. Admiral Kane was already working on new battle plans. We need to adjust our strategy. We cannot win a straight fight against those numbers. We need to be smarter. Stone nodded. We need to use every advantage we have. The orbital platforms, the planet's gravity well, asteroid fields we can use for cover. We make them fight on our terms, not theirs. Over the next days, the battle plan evolved. It became more complex and more desperate. They would use the orbital platforms as the main defensive line. Union ships would support them with shields and point defense. Colonial fighters would strike at weak points in the Reaver formations. But everyone knew the truth. Even with perfect execution, this would be close. Very close. Governor Patricia Walsh called a meeting of all senior officers, both colonial and Union. She stood before them in the main conference hall. Hundreds of officers filled the room. Ladies and gentlemen, officers of all species, we face the greatest battle of our lives. The Reavers are coming with everything they have. But we are ready. We have Union technology and colonial experience. We have courage and determination. Most importantly, we have each other. She paused and looked around the room. 300 years ago, my ancestors came to this world seeking peace. Instead, they found war. They could have given up. They could have run. But they stayed. They fought. They survived. Now you are all part of that legacy. You are all defenders of New Terra. Whatever happens, we will make the Reavers regret coming here. The room erupted in cheers. Colonial and Union officers stood together, united in purpose. Kyle felt pride and fear mixing together in his chest. That night, Kyle could not sleep. He walked through the command center looking at all the preparations. Ships were being loaded with ammunition. Shields were being tested. Crews were drilling emergency procedures. Everyone was doing their part. He found Zelathor on one of the orbital platforms. She was checking the targeting systems personally. She worked with quiet efficiency, making sure every system was perfect. Captain, why are you doing this yourself? You have crews for this work. Zelathor turned to look at him with her compound eyes. Because in battle, small details matter. One targeting system that fails at the wrong moment can cost lives. I will not let my people die because of a detail I could have checked. Kyle understood. This was what leadership meant. Doing whatever it took to give your people the best chance. Do you think we can win, Captain? Zelathor was quiet for a moment. I do not know. The odds are not good. But I have learned something from the colonists. Sometimes survival is not about odds. It is about will. The Reavers have numbers. We have determination. We will see which is stronger. Kyle looked out the window at the planet below. Millions of people lived down there. They trusted their defenders to keep them safe. It was a heavy responsibility. Sophie found him an hour later. She had a message from Admiral Kane. The Admiral wanted to see him. Admiral Kane was in the main war room with Jacob Stone and General Nathan Cross. They were looking at the final battle plans. When Kyle entered, Kane looked up. Commander Harrison, we have finished the operational plan. It is as good as we can make it. Now we wait. How long? Kyle asked. Stone checked the sensors. 4 weeks. Maybe less. The Reaver fleet has started moving. General Cross stood up. Then we use the time we have. We drill, we prepare. We make sure everyone knows their job. When the Reavers arrive, we will be ready. Kyle looked at the three leaders. A Union admiral who had never seen real war. A colonial commander who had seen too much war. A general who had spent his life preparing for this moment. The command center was completely silent. Every screen showed the same thing. The Reaver fleet had arrived. It was even bigger than the intelligence report suggested. The sensors were still counting ships, but there were at least 250 capital vessels. Behind them came thousands of smaller ships in tight formations. Kyle stood next to Admiral Kane and Commander Stone. They watched the displays without speaking. There was nothing to say. The enemy was here. The battle would begin soon. Captain Zelathor's voice came through the communication system. All defensive positions report ready. Orbital platforms are charged and targeting systems are locked. We are prepared. Sophie sat at her station monitoring communications from all the ships. Her face was pale, but her hands were steady on the controls. She had trained for this. Everyone had trained for this. The Reaver fleet stopped just outside weapons range. They formed up in their classic formation. All ships bunched together in one massive formation, just like Stone had predicted. They would pick a point and hit it with everything. Admiral Kane spoke calmly into her microphone. All ships hold formation. Wait for my command. Let them make the first move. Minutes passed. The Reavers just sat there in space. Were they analyzing the defenses? Planning their attack? Nobody knew. The Reavers never communicated. They just attacked, then they moved. The entire fleet accelerated forward as one massive wave. They were heading straight for the center of the defensive line. Exactly as Stone had predicted, here they come. Stone said quietly, "Remember the plan. Hold the center. Let them commit. Then we hit the flanks." Admiral Kane gave the orders. Center line, brace for impact. Activate all shields. Weapons free when they enter range. The Reaver ships entered weapons range. Immediately they opened fire. Beams of energy lanced out from thousands of ships. The space between the fleets lit up with weapons fire. The orbital defense platforms returned fire. The railguns spoke with thunder. Solid projectiles moving at incredible speed punched into Reaver hulls. Ships exploded, but there were so many of them. For every ship destroyed, 10 more kept coming. Union ships activated their shields. The energy beams hit the shields and were deflected or absorbed. The shields glowed bright as they took hit after hit. But they held. The Union shield technology was working. Kyle watched the tactical display. The center line was taking massive damage, but it was holding. The Reavers were doing exactly what Stone said they would. They were throwing everything at one point. "Now," Stone said firmly. "They are committed. Hit the flanks now." Admiral Kane gave the order. "Wing formations, execute attack pattern Delta. All fighters, you are cleared to engage." Union ships that had been waiting on the flanks suddenly accelerated. They came at the Reaver fleet from both sides. At the same time, hundreds of Colonial and Union fighters launched from their carriers. Major Lisa Carter led her fighter wing straight into the chaos. Her voice was calm and professional on the communications channel. "All fighters target the support ships first. Break their formation, go." The fighters dove into the battle. They were small and fast. They dodged between the big ships, firing missiles and railguns at the Reaver support vessels. The support ships tried to defend themselves, but the fighters were too agile. The Union wing ships hit the Reaver flanks hard. Their weapons were not as powerful as Colonial railguns, but they had better rate of fire. They poured energy beams and missiles into the Reaver ships. The Reavers tried to turn to face this new threat, but they were too bunched together. They got in each other's way. Kyle could see the battle plan working. The Reavers had committed to attacking the center. Now they were taking fire from 3 sides. They were strong, but they were not invincible. But the cost was high. On the center line, Union ships were taking terrible damage. Shields failed under the constant bombardment. Ships were hit by energy beams. Armor melted. Crews died. Sophie called out casualty reports. Union cruiser Defiant is down. Colonial destroyer Vengeance has lost power. Medical ship Haven is evacuating wounded. Kyle felt each loss like a physical blow, but they had to keep fighting. There was no other choice. The battle raged for hours. The Reavers were relentless. They did not retreat even when losing ships. They just kept attacking. But slowly their numbers decreased. The combined firepower of the defense was working. Then the Reavers changed tactics. A group of their capital ships broke away from the main formation. They headed straight for one of the orbital platforms. They were going to try to destroy the platforms one by one. Captain Zelathor was on that platform. Her voice came through clearly. "This is Platform 7, we see them coming. We will hold. Admiral Kane tried to send help. Platform 7, support ships are on their way. Hold for 5 minutes, understood, we will hold." Zelathor's voice was calm. The platform's weapons fired continuously. Railguns pounded the approaching Reaver ships. Missiles streaked out by the dozens. 2 Reaver capital ships exploded. But more kept coming. Kyle watched helplessly. The platform was defending itself well, but it was outnumbered. 5 Reaver capital ships concentrated their fire on it. The platform's shields glowed bright, then started to flicker. Shield strength at 30%, Zelathor reported. 20%, 15. Then suddenly Major Carter's fighter wing appeared. They had broken off from the main battle and raced to help. They dove at the Reaver capital ships, firing everything they had. "Platform 7, this is Carter. We have your back. Hold on." The fighters were like angry bees around the big Reaver ships. They fired missiles at weak points. They used their railguns to punch holes in armor. One Reaver capital ship lost power and drifted. Another exploded when a missile hit its reactor. Union support ships arrived moments later. They extended their shields to cover the platform. The combined defensive fire drove off the remaining Reaver ships. Platform 7 held. Zelathor's voice showed relief. "Thank you, Major Carter. Good timing. Just doing my job, Captain," Carter replied. Her fighters regrouped and headed back into the main battle. The battle continued. Both sides were getting tired now. The Reavers had lost maybe a third of their fleet. But the defenders had lost ships too. The center line was badly damaged. Several platforms were operating at reduced capacity. Stone studied the tactical display. They are starting to break up. Their formation is losing cohesion. If we hit them hard now, we might break them. Admiral Kane nodded. "All ships prepare for final push. We are going to drive them back." "On my mark." But before she could give the order, something unexpected happened. The Reavers stopped attacking. Their entire fleet suddenly turned and started to retreat. They were leaving. The command center erupted in surprised voices. Kyle could not believe it. The Reavers never retreated. But they were retreating now. "Do we pursue?" Someone asked. Stone shook his head. "No, let them go. We are too damaged for pursuit. And they might be trying to draw us into a trap." Admiral Kane agreed. "All ships hold position." "Let them retreat. Focus on damage control and rescue operations." The Reaver fleet jumped to faster than light speed and disappeared. The battle was over. They had won. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then slowly, cheers started to spread through the command center. They had survived. Against impossible odds, they had survived. But Kyle could not cheer. He was looking at the casualty reports. 20 Union ships destroyed. 5 colonial destroyers lost. 3 orbital platforms heavily damaged. Thousands of people dead. Sophie came over to him. Her eyes were red from crying. "We won," she said quietly. "But the price was so high." Kyle put his arm around her shoulders. "Yes, victory always has a price. But without their sacrifice, everyone would have died. They saved the colony. They saved all of us." Stone walked over to them. His face showed exhaustion and grief. "Commander Harrison, I want to thank you. If the Union had not come, we would have lost. Your people fought bravely. So did yours, Commander Stone." Kyle shook his hand. This was a victory for all of us. Colonial and Union together. Admiral Kane joined them. She looked tired but satisfied. The Reavers lost over half their fleet. It will take them years to rebuild. Maybe they will think twice before attacking again. Or maybe they will come back even stronger, Stone said. But now we will be ready. We have Union support. We are not alone anymore. Over the next days, the recovery work began. Damaged ships were repaired. Wounded were treated. The dead were honored. It was hard work, but necessary work. Kyle attended the memorial service for the fallen. Thousands of people gathered in the capital city. Colonial citizens and Union personnel stood together. They remembered those who gave their lives. Governor Patricia Walsh gave a speech. She talked about sacrifice. She talked about courage. She talked about how the colony and the Union had become one through shared struggle. We were lost and alone for 300 years, but we are lost no more. We are part of something bigger now, part of a galactic community. The Reavers tried to destroy us, but instead they brought us together. That is our victory." Kyle stood with Sophie watching the ceremony. He thought about everything that had happened. The discovery of the colony. The threat of the Reavers. The desperate preparation. The terrible battle. And finally, the victory. It had been worth it. The colony was saved. The threat was pushed back. The galaxy was safer. But the cost had been high. Kyle would never forget the faces of those who died. 6 months had passed since the Great Battle. Kyle Harrison stood in the Galactic Union Council chambers on Earth. The room was huge, with representatives from hundreds of worlds sitting in curved rows. Above them, holographic displays showed data from across the galaxy. Kyle had been asked to give a report about New Terra and the Reaver threat. He had prepared carefully. This report would determine how the Union responded to the Reavers. It would shape policy for decades to come. Sophie sat in the audience. She had been promoted for her work during the battle. Now she was an advisor on colonial affairs. She smiled at Kyle, giving him encouragement. The council speaker called for attention. The room became quiet. "Commander Harrison, please present your report on the New Terra situation and the Reaver threat." Kyle stood and activated the holographic display. Images of New Terra appeared. Then images of the battle. The council members watched with serious faces. "Honorable council members, I stand before you to report on one of the most significant discoveries in Union history. We found a lost human colony that had been fighting for survival for 3 centuries. In doing so, we discovered a new threat to galactic peace. The Reavers." Kyle showed recordings of Reaver attacks. He showed their ships, their tactics, their brutal efficiency. The council members leaned forward, paying close attention. The colonists of New Terra developed military capabilities far beyond what we expected. They did this because they had no choice. They adapted or they died. And in adapting, they became experts at fighting an enemy we never knew existed. Ambassador Krelthos, who had once opposed helping the colony, raised his hand. "Commander Harrison, you mentioned that the Reavers retreated after the battle. Why did they retreat?" "This species supposedly never retreats." Kyle nodded. "That is an excellent question, Ambassador. We believe they retreated because we made the cost too high. The colonists taught us that the Reavers are not mindless. They calculate cost versus benefit. When the cost becomes too high, they withdraw and look for easier targets." Another council member spoke up. A small alien named Delegate Rin from the Mindari species. "Does this mean the Reaver threat is over?" No, Kyle's voice was firm. "The Reavers are still out there. They are rebuilding their fleet. According to our intelligence, they may attack again in 5 to 10 years. But now we have time to prepare. Time to build defenses. Time to unite against this threat." The council speaker stood. "Commander Harrison, what do you recommend?" Kyle had been waiting for this question. "I recommend 3 actions. First, establish a permanent Union military presence at New Terra. Make it a fortress world that protects this entire sector. Second, learn from the colonists. Their weapons technology and tactics work against the Reavers. We should adopt them. Third, begin searching for other colonies that might be facing similar threats. We cannot let anyone else fight alone for centuries." The council discussed his recommendations for hours. There were arguments and debates. Some wanted to do more, some wanted to do less. But in the end, they voted to approve all 3 recommendations. New Terra would become a full Union member world with military protection. The Union would build new defenses there. They would station fleets there permanently. The colonists would train Union forces in anti-Reaver tactics. After the vote, Kyle felt exhausted but satisfied. He had done his job. The colony would be protected. The Union would be prepared. Sophie found him outside the council chambers. "We did it," she said with a big smile. "They listened to us. They listened to the colonists." Kyle corrected her. "We just told their story. They earned this through blood and courage." That night, Kyle received a message from New Terra. It was from Jacob Stone. The message was simple but meant everything. "Commander Harrison, we heard about the council vote. Thank you. For the first time in 300 years, we can think about a future without constant war. Our children might grow up in peace. That is a gift beyond measure. New Terra will never forget what you did for us." Kyle recorded a response. "Commander Stone, you have it backwards. You showed the galaxy what it means to survive against impossible odds. You reminded us that peace must sometimes be defended with strength. The Union is stronger because of you. Earth is proud to call New Terra family again. Over the following months, changes came quickly. Union construction ships arrived at New Terra. They began building new orbital platforms. They upgraded existing defenses. They built shipyards that could produce both colonial and Union designs. Admiral Victoria Kane took command of the New Terra defense fleet. She had learned much from the battle. Now she trained a new generation of officers in anti-reaver tactics. Colonial and Union personnel worked side by side, learning from each other. Captain Zelathor became the commander of the Orbital Defense Network. She expanded it from 40 platforms to 80. Each one was stronger than the originals. She made New Terra into the most heavily defended world in the sector. Dr. Helen Park opened a joint research facility. Scientists from across the Union came to study Reaver technology with her. They developed new weapons and defenses. They prepared for the next battle, hoping it would never come. Major Lisa Carter started a training academy for fighter pilots. She taught colonial tactics to Union pilots. Her academy became famous across the galaxy. The best pilots wanted to train there. Governor Patricia Walsh focused on rebuilding civilian life. With the immediate threat reduced, the colony could finally invest in things besides war. New schools opened. New parks were built. The arts flourished again. Slowly, the colony started to look less like a military base and more like a normal world. But they never forgot the lessons of survival. Every citizen still trained for defense. The weapons remained ready. The ships stayed in orbit. They had learned that peace was precious because it was fragile. A year after the battle, Kyle returned to New Terra. This time it was for a celebration. The colony was hosting its first Festival of Unity. It was a celebration of the bond between New Terra and the Galactic Union. Kyle walked through the capital city with Sophie. The streets were decorated with flags from hundreds of Union worlds. Music played. People laughed and celebrated. It was hard to believe this was the same place that had been preparing for extinction a year ago. They met Jacob Stone at the Memorial Park. A new monument had been built there. It showed a colonial soldier and a Union soldier standing back to back, defending each other. The names of everyone who died in the battle were carved into the base. Stone looked older but more relaxed. The constant tension he used to carry was gone. It is beautiful, is it not? The monument, I mean. It shows what we learned. That we are stronger together. Kyle nodded. How are things really going here, Commander? Stone smiled. Better than I ever hoped. We have Union support, but we kept our independence. We have modern technology, but we kept our identity. Young people are starting to think about careers besides military service. That might be the biggest change of all. What about the Reavers? Are they still a threat? Stone's smile faded a little. Always. Our deep space sensors show they are still rebuilding, but now we have early warning systems extending for light years. If they come back, we will see them weeks in advance, and we will be ready. Governor Walsh joined them. She had aged well in the past year. The stress lines on her face had softened. Commander Harrison, Lieutenant Green, welcome back. I hope you will stay for the entire festival. We would not miss it, Governor, Kyle said warmly. That evening there was a great ceremony. Leaders from across the Union attended. Even Ambassador Krelthos was there. He had become one of New Terra's strongest supporters after seeing the battle. Governor Walsh gave a speech to the gathered crowd. 300 years ago, our ancestors left Earth seeking a new home. They found it here on New Terra, but they also found something they did not expect: war. For generations, we fought alone. We survived alone. We adapted alone. Some said we became too hard, too focused on war. Maybe they were right. She paused and looked around at the crowd. But then Earth found us again. The Galactic Union found us. And we learned something important. We learned that being strong does not mean being alone. We learned that survival is better when shared. We learned that the galaxy is full of friends we never knew we had. The crowd cheered. Humans, Vex, Saurians, Mindari, and dozens of other species all cheering together. Walsh continued. Today we celebrate not just our survival, but our reunion with the larger human family. We celebrate our new friends from across the stars. And we celebrate the future. A future where New Terra is no longer lost and alone. A future where we stand together against any threat. A future of hope. Later that night, Kyle stood with Sophie on a hill overlooking the city. Fireworks filled the sky. Below them, millions of people celebrated. It was a beautiful sight. Do you think they will be okay? Sophie asked. If the Reavers come back? Kyle thought about everything he had seen. The weapons, the defenses, the training, the determination. Yes, they will be okay. They have something now they did not have before. They have allies. They have support. Most importantly, they have hope. That makes all the difference. Sophie leaned against his shoulder. We did good work here. We helped save millions of lives. We played our part. But the colonists saved themselves. They just needed to know they were not alone anymore. They watched the fireworks for a while uncomfortable.